So we are the contractor that delivered all of the mechanical systems here. bGrid was part of our remit. I will be quick. 20 minutes seemed like a long time, and as a contractor, you don't sort of do a lot of presentations to many different people. But hopefully I'll reinforce, because I believe exactly what Miloš said and what the bGrid team are saying, that, you know, we are contractors, we're probably very doubtful of claims, especially when we work on fixed price, design and build. You know, we want to see something working, we want to know it's going to not cause us an issue before we want it. We found it a great experience. So we came on board with this project late 2019, I think it was. Yeah, late 2019, the main contractor placed an order with us. The specification from the consultant had obviously been generated prior to, I don't know, Miloš might be able to say, prior to bGrid being introduced into it. We knew that because all the specification was written in black, apart from 4 pages were in red, because they'd all been copy and pasted in. Nothing had been checked to see that it all linked together. It had another manufacturer of BMS equipment in there. So we quickly got together, spoke to bGrid, moved forward with them, found that the other manufacturer, who's probably the biggest household name, BMS house in the UK, wasn't appreciating that this is the first install in the country. It's the first time we've done it, the first time the country's done it. Could we have a bit of help? Well, no. You know, do you want to buy the stuff or not? So we went straight to Preva. Thankfully, when the client-side consultant found out that Preva I don't know if he was a majority investor in Preva, but at that point, they had an investment in bGrid. Brilliant. All went through. Support then from BMS and from bGrid was fantastic. Now, the first time we physically saw bGrid equipment was, I think, around about the 21st of February. What's that, 3 or 4 weeks before they locked the whole country down? We went to Amsterdam. I think even when we went to Amsterdam, you could feel in your bones something was happening. But we didn't, you know, we all had a drink after, saw the equipment, went the next day to Schiphol, saw the fantastic stuff that Microsoft, I mean, what they do with it is unbelievable. Came back, right, we're going to put all this bGrid in. It's all going to go in. We've only ever worked with BMS systems before that do it all for you, but this bGrid looks brilliant. Right, no one's coming from Amsterdam. No one's coming anywhere. You're doing it yourselves, guy. No one can come into the country. So the help that we got was absolutely unbelievable. And I would say, you know, I'd join Preva into that conversation. For any consultants that are in here and are on the specification side, you know, don't just choose trend. Don't just put it in. These guys are doing stuff with people long beyond, you know, the trend monopoly. The remote design and work on the systems was fantastic. So, I mean, Nav's given me a great name of what, MSI, Master Systems Integrator. We're a mechanical contractor. You know, design and build, mechanical contractor, 20 odd years in the industry. We can make it all work. You know, we can get it in as a package of part, everything else you see here. So, yeah, it doesn't need, shall we say, a rocket scientist working to do it. The support they gave, you know, some of the things we found at the beginning was, I think, were quite, has obviously listened to concerns that have come back, because he stole my thunder about all the funky screens he's got of all the reports. Well, we were doing a lot of that stuff ourselves from the original screens that bGrid gave us, but, you know, tied to a zone per FCU, which then generates the amount of sensors here. So the flexibility that's being talked about is in the building. You know, you can control it. The granular data we were getting out once it all went in was fantastic. The node system and to the gateway was something we had to get a head round as well. No physical connection from the node to the gateway, you know, and you know, someone talked about failure on the systems and that sort of thing. We didn't really see that. And we probably spent from pre-commission to handover, I'd imagine 3-4 months working with a system, getting different floors up and running and running across that. We didn't find that an issue. And I'll repeat what Miloš said. As soon as we had any, it was more queries, bGrid came back. There wasn't a discussion. They were proactive in arranging meetings, all on Teams. It was a great experience. So when we run through to the commissioning side, this building, you guys will go on a walk around, but from a mechanical standpoint, it is a complicated set of systems here. There's a lot that Middlecap wanted to achieve with the building. You can see how tight the services are confined within the notional void. Say go to lower ground floor and you've got a full ceiling. It's a whole different strategy above there and needed that. When it came to commissioning, the ability, I know you can go into a BMS system and you can see what it did historically from interrogating an old bloody PC on it and that sort of thing. But when we were, some of the flow rates to these fan coils are 0.08 litres per second. They just register on a PIC-V. When we were trying to get the building running and we were finding some issues with that, we would just take the historic data from the bGrid system that Walt showed you across here. We would take that system and we'd say, right, that's working, that's generally working, that's not, we'll go and start with that one. Rather than the old school, pull all the heads off, check the actuators going up and down and work across it. From a contractor point of view, I will stand by what bGrid has said there. The unfathomable, the unknowable saving in being able to save time in fault finding. I defy any contractors come up here and say, it'll go perfect. I've got 12 weeks for commissioning. Here's what I'm going to do every day and it all goes fine. It never does. Even the best of us in the business can't happen. So that ability was fantastic. It really helped us. And yet again, it felt very much like a plug and play system. An overused euphemism from long ago. It felt very much like a plug and play system. I feel quite confident that if you needed another zone set up, bGrid could send a box and you could get another zone set up. And I hadn't had the service with regard to the remote dialing. When you've dealt with BMS over the years, it's generally someone comes, sits at a panel, plugs in, deals with it all and that sort of thing. But the remote dialing was very, very good. And the custom into the lights. So we didn't do the electrical project here, but obviously we were involved in how the sensor networks worked and getting that all working. But the ability, I think they sent them to you, didn't they? Well, they sent a light fitting and asked you to can we have a sensor in that? And I think the answer was probably. And then, it happened. So that customization was really good. Outside of that, was there any queries on the install process? Because I think bGrid just wanted us to come as a counterpoint to lots of lovely presentations. It'll all work brilliant and that sort of thing. But as a contractor, how would you do it? Yeah. Program savings. Do you know where the saving? We didn't fathom this in the beginning. This was, it's a new system and we didn't know it. But if I'd have known now, the ability to get the historic trends, the data on such a granular level, most BMS systems, the Preva guys are here, but it might be a thermostat there, might be a thermostat there. I've got an average across the floor. But the ability to tell on a granular level, down to a zone, down to a fan coil, what temperature I'm getting in that zone. Imagine the fault finding possibilities when I'm, trying to commission the system. Yes, if I had known that us as a business were going to get that, you might be talking sort of on a 12-week commission across this building. We might have been looking at a week or two, just in fault finding savings. But I didn't know that at the beginning. I'm only knowing that now.
Louis, I think you didn't do the electron side, but
nope.
From a CapEx perspective, where does this sit with a traditional system?
So because it was brought in by the client, CapEx aside, Middlecap had already chosen, decided, and I think placed orders directly and controlled that cost. I think, I don't think anyone would lie and say it's going to be cheaper than a sensor there and a sensor there. Obviously, there's a cost to it. You know, and we don't use the data either. You know, we just provide an output for everyone. But I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know what the capex was. Yeah.
Yeah.
CapEx are in an operation, so it'd be good to see that.
Just from our point of view, yes, the capex investment is you have to compare apples and apples. When you compare it with the standard way of doing things like PIR, temperature, humidity, and that's it. Yeah, it's definitely a much bigger investment. When you compare it with the alternative that I would like to have all these data because I want to utilize them, but I will pick up individual sensors and put them everywhere. In that case, this is comparable with any other approaches. And there are many things which we can calculate only approximately. Like now when we are doing the fit outs and the building will be fully leased till the end of the year, it looks like that. All the wirings which need to be in the walls, all the switches and so on, the thermostats, these are the costs which you now don't have to pay because you are not dealing with anything physical. So it's definitely comparable, but you have to compare it with the right thing and not just the simple way of doing things. But yeah, it's a correct question.
Charlie, again, maybe about management. Tell me afterwards, but the important thing for me as a developer about whether to put it in or not is where am I going to get the value? So you would have proved to me that users who don't know they need the data yet, but will, and are increasingly using it. So that's the like for like.
Yeah, exactly. Just two simple things. First, we are able to utilize data to lower the consumption of the energy consumption of the building because that's much more granular than that we could get with the normal system. So we can really play with it. And second thing is that the service charge in this building is absolutely comparable with the rest of the market. So from the operational point of view, there's nothing really much more capital intensive than the normal thing. But yeah, water has definitely much better market data.
One thing, so like with Middelcaps bought us for the full Monty functionality. Yeah. Very often from a product developer or an early days investor perspective, there is maybe the wish for the full Monty functionality, but there's not yet a tenant that's going to pay for it, and there is not the familiarity with this kind of technology to justify the investment. So we've differentiated in recent years to have smart building ready and smart building in action. It's the same infrastructure. I explained it very briefly just before we started, but we basically say in smart building ready, you get all the conventional functionalities that you would have otherwise, and then the capex, depending on the project, is reduced with 25 to 50%. And then if you want the full functionalities later, then of course you pay the remaining part. That's.
And just saying, on an installation side, it's a marginal cost. I mean, you can see what you've got here. If you're here fitting this building out, doing a few sensors while you're here isn't a huge cost. Yeah. Cool.
What is it replace? Do you still have the turn sensors for both units?
Yeah, within the sensors, you've got your coil off, your return air sensor. But I mean, I don't think these are TROCs. These are TROCs FCUs. They're going to come with them anyway. If you asked them what saving was without it, they'd say, "What are you doing?"
There's no saving there. What was trying to understand is the BMS.
So typically on this floor, if I was putting a typical BMS-based system that run this floor, I might have a stat there, and perhaps one more for temperature. Might have a humidity sensor, might have the odd sensor. It's replacing that suite. And that was another conversation with the consultant at the time, because obviously the spec was wrote, I want BMS sensors. Well, why do you want them? oh, okay, well, convince me why. It's not hard. This is what you're not having. But those sensors, you know, BMS is great for running the building and the guts of it and that sort of thing. But those sensors are not giving you any granular data. They would just average the reading and give you an average for the area.
Going back to the point about failure, is if that fact, sure, the BMS reverts back to.
Yes. Yes.
It might be cruder.
Yep.
What the default BMS would look like.
Quite right. So if there is a full failure, and I haven't seen that, but if there's a full failure, obviously the BMS has got its own. The BMS controls everything. It takes the inputs and works to what bGrid wants it to do. But if bGrid wasn't here, it'd work to the set points we input into it at the beginning. Yeah.
I can add to that.
Go
I'm Richard Bush from Prevent, Tech Support Manager. Yeah, the BMS reverts, takes the note from the nodes in BACnet across. It takes a last node value. If it goes offline, it will work with that last set point and that last value of that temperature sensor and control with the sensors that are there. So yes, it will carry on controlling.
Would it by default, if the sensor, if it thinks the sensor's gone down or that part of the network's gone down, it just reverts back to the return evidence?
It can do, but I think it will just sit there and there. It depends on how the configuration can be done. But it is their ability to pick up that BACnet device and say, if it goes in alarm, yes, revert back and can do that.
Yeah, you're right. The return air sensor is outputting the temperatures to the BMS because there's another portal, obviously, not just the bGrid one. You've got your standard Preva automation login that's giving you all your FCUs. Yes.
Yeah.
Conventional systems, it's just how you're operating the feedback.
It takes away the room occupancy, the room PIR, the room temperature, the air quality, doesn't it? But the standard BMS sensors are still there.
Yeah, they are.
Side question, which is
Go on.
probably for you though. So does the lighting control also have that separate system?
The
lighting controls is
the lighting control, I think, has got its own. It's a DALI system.
Yes.
In here.
Yes.
Yeah, but so our bGrid nodes provide the DALI master and the full light management functionality. Yeah. So there's no light management apart from the nodes at all.
and sorry, on the lighting controls, are your sensors facing the PILs?
Yes.
So there are no
There is not a single light management device in the building except for our nodes.
Yeah. Yes.
No. But yeah, I can see where you're going with that because a lot of belt and braces consultants would say, looks fantastic. What if it goes wrong? Yeah, in the background, there is a full BMS. And quite rightly, because it's a complicated building and you do, that BMS needs to do a lot of other things. There's plant rooms in the lower ground, there's plant rooms on the, they all need running by BMS, you know, MCPs and that sort of stuff. So, yeah. And just outside of that, the future, one of the things that we do really like the look of with what bGrid does, our clients talk to us about, you know, the euphemism, digital twins, that sort of thing. So we've done some work with other clients about, we can take the outputs that bGrid put out, and you know, you could use a Matterport model, walk around here and have a photo realist and click the FCU and see the you know, the data you're getting in that sort of model, work with all of those sorts of things. And you wasn't getting that. You weren't ever getting that before. You know, the granularity and the level of scale of data that's coming out is, yeah, it's something we hadn't worked with before. Okay. Thank you.